you to those of you who have joined us today to learn more about our STEMteach program. My name is Pam Bowen, and I am the program manager for the STEMteach program. We're excited to have you here today to learn a little bit more, to meet some key individuals that are part of the program. After this brief introduction from me, you'll hear from Dr. Rachelle Haroldson and our program director, Dr. Earl Blodgett. Towards the end of our time together, we have two current students, Jarrod and Mike, who are here to talk to you a little bit about what is going on right now in the program. And then we've reserved time for some questions and answers at the end of our session. You should see, if your screen looks like mine, there is a chat function on the right-hand side of the screen. You can enter questions as they come up, or if you want to hang on to those questions and we can ask them at the end. We have a small enough group that will probably be able to do some of that with voice questions as well, instead of just typing them. So some background on the program. STEMteach began in 2015, and that was part of a response to the lack of qualified math, science, computer science teachers in this area. UWRF has a long tradition of training educators, and we knew that there was a need for those who have an undergraduate degree in the math and science fields to have this expedited path to licensure. So with the help of a capacity building grant from the National Science Foundation, we developed this program based on the UTeach model from the University of Texas at Austin. Dr. Haroldson can maybe provide a little bit more about what that structure has helped give to our program. And then, so after that initial grant that got us off the ground, we were lucky enough that we were awarded a second grant to help cover the cost and directly support the tuition of some of our current teacher candidates. So Dr. Blodgett will tell you a little bit more about that opportunity that we have for current students as well. So now I will hand everything over to Dr. Haroldson to get us started. Again, use the chat feature. We might not get to some of those in line, but we'll get to some of them at the end. And we'll keep us on time, and we should be done here in about a half an hour. So Dr. Haroldson, on to you.
Thanks, Pam. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Rachelle Haroldson, and I'm the master teacher in the STEMteach program. And I'm also a clinical associate professor. And what that means is that I'm a common thread throughout STEMteach. So I'm an instructor in the program, I'm your supervisor in the program and supervise all of your field experiences, I'm your mentor, and I'm your academic advisor, both during your time in STEMteach when you're completing the requirements for licensure and afterwards as you pursue a pathway to complete your master's. So I'm with you from the beginning all the way through the end, which is a really unique aspect of our program. A little bit about the curriculum of the program. As Pam said, we are an inspired UTeach site. So we collaborated and consulted with the UTeach program out of UT Austin to use their courses to really set up our curriculum. And their coursework is a spiraled model that really uses research-based best practices to teach math, science, and in our case, we also have the licensure for computer science. So my goal is that all of the candidates within STEMteach see themselves as STEM teachers, not just as a biology teacher or as a math teacher or as a computer science teacher. I want the candidates to leave feeling like they are STEM teachers and they can really come into their discipline with an integrative approach. STEMteach starts in June. It's a cohort model, so you come together with your classmates and you have two courses over the summertime. In the first course, which is STEPS, you have some field experiences, so we collaborate with the River Falls Elementary School program, and we also collaborate with the Upward Bound program here on campus at River Falls. After that, we move into the fall, where you take 4 more courses. You have functions in modeling, you have a literacy course, and you have class actions, and you have project-based instruction. Towards the latter part of the semester, you have another field experience. This time, you're in a middle school. So you're paired up with a classmate where you're co-teaching lessons, either within a science classroom or within a math classroom, depending on which licenses you are seeking. Then in January, we have a J-term course, which is taught online, and this is Perspectives of the History of Science and Math. And then in the spring, you have your apprentice teaching or your student teaching experience and the seminar, which is a supportive course that you take that helps you while you are in the classroom full-time. You're co-teaching with a master mentor teacher, typically at the high school level. And you start that in late January, early February, and then continue following the calendar year of your school. During all of those field experiences, I am your supervisor, so I'm coming into the classroom and observing you and giving you feedback and really supporting you out this entire process. All of the topics that we cover, they start in the beginning of the courses, and then, as I said, they spiral, which means they get touched on again and again, deeper and deeper throughout the year. So we're thinking about instruction and planning, best practices within math and science and computer science education. We're thinking about project-based instruction. We're thinking about assessment. We're thinking about equity and social justice in education. And as we think about these foundational pieces of research and current research, we're taking that theory and putting it into practice. So we have early and often field experiences. So right away in that first summer class, within a week or in a few days, you are connecting and working with students. You're connecting and working with the mentor. As I said before, this is a cohort model. So you start with your classmates in June, and then you are with the same group of teacher candidates for the entire year of the program. So from early June to early June of the following year, you move through together. Your cohort really becomes your academic family. And this is the beginning of your education network. So these classmates, they are going to people you're going to stay in contact with when you go on to your first teaching position in your first school. Even if you move away to a different state or a different city, you stay connected with this core group of people because you have this really strong shared common experience of STEMteach. And then it leads to more collaborations once you're in the classroom. One of the other pieces that you have the option of after you finish the licensure portion of STEMteach is to complete your master's. We have 3 different pathways for that. We have the thesis pathway, the research paper pathway, and the capstone pathway. And if you choose to pursue this, and in which case I hope you do, I act as your advisor, giving you advice, helping you along, guiding you in whichever pathway you choose to pursue. There's also really strong support from faculty. So whether that's in the summer or in the fall or in the spring, faculty are really here to support you and give you what you need, whether that's having one-on-one meetings with you or meeting with you and your teaching partner, coming to class early, staying in class afterwards. The staff and the instructors are here to make sure that you are successful, right? We are dream keepers. We want to make sure that you continue on your path to getting your teaching license and getting into a classroom and working with students, whether those are middle school students or high school students. We are really here to support you and urge you on your way. Pam, are there any quick questions that came up in the chat?
It looks like we had one question early on, but that person is no longer logged in. So I can follow up with them once we're offline. So unless there's anything else, I guess we can turn it over to Earl at this point and keep us on schedule with some of our scholarship and tuition type questions or information, not questions.
Yes. So I'm Earl Blodgett. I'm the director of the STEMteach program and the principal investigator on our National Science Foundation grants. And I'm a professor in the physics department here at River Falls. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the financial aspect of this program. We've designed this program to be as affordable as possible. but we couldn't make it free. So the cost of tuition and fees and everything for this whole year experience that will lead to your license will be on the order of $16,000. That's pretty good for a full year of graduate study. But we realize that that can still be financially challenging. So as a graduate student, you are still eligible for financial aid, and there are programs specifically intended to support people who are looking to become a STEM education teacher because of the shortages. And the particular program from the National Science Foundation that we have a grant from, the NOICE program, is one of those programs. So if you elect to pursue being a NOICE scholar, you would apply for that. And if you're qualified, then starting in the fall semester, you would be given a stipend. We get part of the stipend in the fall, part of the stipend in J term, and the rest in the spring. It's $18,000. So the stipend adds up to more than the cost of your tuition and fees. You have a little bit for some extra expenses. Now, you may have noticed that you don't get any money for the summer session. The summer session is where you're testing the water to make sure that, yes, you really do want to be a teacher. You really love this. It's really exciting. And you say, yeah, I want to be a NOICE scholar. Sign me up. And of course, we get to see you in action as well, so that we can tell, yeah, you've got what it takes. We want to sign you up as a NOICE scholar. So you have to pay for the summer yourself, but your stipend in the fall is generous enough that it can make up for that money you spent on J term, on the summer session, sorry. So there is a catch. There's a string attached. If you are a NOICE scholar, you agree to teach 2 years in a high-need school district. And after you finish your license, you've got a total of 4 years to satisfy that 2-year requirement. So you don't have to worry if your very first job is in a district that doesn't qualify as high need. You still have some time in order to do that. What is a high need district? Well, there's 3 different criteria that can be used to determine if a district is high need. One is income. If any school in the entire district has more than 50% of their students on free or reduced lunch, then it's a high need district. So you might be teaching in the high school in a district, and they might only have 45% of their students on free or reduced lunch. But perhaps one of the grade schools in that district has 60% of the students on free or reduced lunch. The whole district qualifies. Or you could be in a situation where the district is having a difficult time recruiting teachers who are well qualified for their topic. You've got, to exaggerate, you've got an English teacher teaching biology. Okay, so if you have more than a third of the teachers teaching outside of their area of licensure, outside of their area of expertise, that's qualification to be a high need district. Or option number 3, there could be a lot of turnover of teachers. If over a 3-year span, more than a third of the teachers have left and been replaced by new teachers, that qualifies as a high need district. So as you're finishing up the STEMteach program in the spring, you're doing your apprentice teaching, and you're starting to look for job openings, we will help you with finding out if a particular district that you're looking at meets those qualifications. Now, what happens if you accept a NOICE scholarship and you can't you take a job in a district that doesn't qualify, you fall in love with the kids, you don't want to leave, well, then we treat it as a loan, and eventually then you have to repay that loan directly to the federal government. So it's not that bad if you can't find a high needs district. But our curriculum is designed to help prepare you to teach in a high need district. And so we really do hope that you will find teaching in a high need district to be personally very rewarding and satisfying. A recent study showed that looking at job satisfaction in the United States, physicians have the highest job satisfaction. Number two, teachers. So this STEMteach program could indeed be your gateway to a career that you will find personally very satisfying. So I'll stop talking at this point and see if there's any questions now. Otherwise, we can hand it over to our current STEMteach students.
Thank you, Earl. Jarrod and Mike, you can go ahead and kind of give your quick thoughts about the STEMteach program. If you know what drew you to the program, what how far along are you on your path as far as career change or what really drew you to the profession. I'm also just going to ask for the attendees that we have. Obviously, we can't forget about the fact that right now we're in a global pandemic and things look a lot different than what STEMteach was really designed to do. So as far as our instruction, and typically we've been very face-to-face, but Jarrod and Mike, if you want to maybe kind of touch on that a little bit about how the cohort is supporting you through some of these challenges, that might be something good as well. So.
Awesome. Thanks, Pam. My name is Jarrod. I'm going to give you a little bit of background and then answer some of the questions that Pam just brought up. I wanted to become a teacher. I started my career as a wildlife conservation and environmental education educator. I just kind of found myself in that field and really loved it. But I was running into this experience where I only got about an hour with the students at a time to do a wildlife lesson and talk about conservation with them. And I might only see those students once a year for an hour. And I didn't feel as though that was a very effective way of teaching about wildlife conservation or environmental education. So late last year, I started looking at different opportunities to become a teacher. And I actually found the UTeach program down at Texas A&M because I was living in New Mexico at the time. And funny story, I started talking to this with my family, and my aunt was actually a part of cohort 1. So I guess I'm kind of like the second generation of STEMteach Klopps and Whites here. And so I looked into the program, and I had a meeting with Rachelle, and I loved the program that she was offering and that UW River Falls was offering. So I applied, and we started classes in June, online completely. Rachelle came and dropped some materials off, but it was all online. And one of the biggest parts of this whole program was that I could be with the students in person after that first week. And Rachelle still managed to make that happen. So that was amazing. Sorry, not the in-person part. We did do an online teaching activity and lesson with some of the Upward Bound students. And we were there within a couple weeks of starting the program. And so that was amazing. This whole situation that we're in right now, I was a little worried about not being prepared to teach in the classroom. I definitely don't feel that way anymore. I feel more prepared to teach in the classroom because of this online experience that we've had. And we are just starting to do that. We just started our observations with our mentor teachers over at Hudson Middle School. And shortly in a couple weeks, we'll start working on assessments with that class and then working on lesson plans with them. I'm super excited about that, and I'm super endorsing this rigorous yet and intensive program, but it's very efficient in the way it kind of streamlines you into accessing the skills and information that you need to become an effective STEM teacher.
Thanks, Jarrod. My name is Mike Sanislo. I am a mechanical engineer by education. I got my bachelor's degree at the University of Minnesota, and have a second degree. I have an MBA from San Francisco State University. I've had 3 careers already. I started as a design engineer, designing DC motors a little over 30 years ago. Then I went into business, marketing, product development, and I learned how to write business plans, and I fell in love with that. I spent the better part of the last 20 years as a self-employed management consultant, showing clients how to innovate. So I'm on to my next career. I have learned my whole life, really, how much I enjoy learning. I'm a lifelong learner. I've tutored my own children. I have 2 children aged 24 and 22, so they're adults now. I tutored them all through college, really, and had lots of experience as a science fair judge and tutoring students over the years. So I did a project about a year ago. I helped a team of high school students with a Rube Goldberg project. I had time and spent about 30 hours helping this team learn about basic engineering principles, and I found that I loved it. And I was told that I was good at it, and that had I ever thought about being a teacher. And so I had heard that more than once in my life and decided to just act on it. Last year, I became a substitute high school math teacher. And then this spring, I discovered that I wanted to be a full-time licensed teacher. And so I looked into 10 different graduate programs. I selected the University of Wisconsin River Falls in part because of Rachel and Pam. I didn't apply until May, and due to their assistance in helping me understand the benefits of this program, I just decided to go to University of Wisconsin River Falls. And so what I really liked about the process was that I got a lot of credit for what I had done with math and science over my career. I'll just say one more thing that inspired me. I have my daughter, Erin, is in graduate school right now, pursuing licensure to teach Spanish. She actually inspired me the most to do this when I saw her teaching students in Ecuador about 2 years ago. I remember thinking, wow, if my daughter can do that, I can do that. 2 things about the program. The technology piece is quite valuable. The T in STEM stands for technology, and we are learning it by doing it. Our entire cohort is learning a large variety of technologies that help us be more effective teachers in the remote learning environment. What Dr. Haroldson said about the cohort model, we are forming relationships that will be with us during our careers. Our cohort is who we learn from. We have micro teaching experiences with our cohort. It's a safe learning environment. I'm doing it twice this afternoon, and we learn from each other. Discussion forums where we post feedback on articles we've read extends the classroom outside of the teaching lessons. So that's what I have. I'm really excited to do this, and I'm looking forward to teaching either high school math or physics or both by next fall.
Great. Thank you both so much. I think it's really very, very valuable to hear from our students who are currently in the program. And I learned more about both of your journeys as well just now. So that's great. So we now have time for some questions and answers. There's also, I'm not sure exactly if, I haven't seen any other questions come in through the chat function. If you have any, please feel free to put them in there now. You can also raise your hand. There should be a little hand symbol that you should be able to hit. And if you do that, Kenzie should be able to unmute you and you can ask your question audibly. So we'll just give a second here if anyone has a question. Otherwise, we do have some that came in before, some real common questions that we can go over as well. So maybe while we're waiting for those to come in, I can kind of get us started and we can stop as live questions come in. But one of the big questions is, what is the timeline for this sort of program for the application? As Mike mentioned, he applied into May. We would ideally like to have all of our students applied and set to go by late April. That gives us time to do the orientation properly, make sure that students have the required paperwork that we need in for your application. So I would consider the end of April as our application deadline, but know that we will work with you if things come up and we need to work into that later time. Due to the real intense and rigorous nature of the courses, we do need everybody to be on the ground, ready to go by the first day of class. So that's really kind of our last, our hard deadline is we don't allow students to start after the start of the program. So, whoops, okay. Great. So a question that came in about teacher license options and the Minnesota versus Wisconsin. Minnesota, obviously, just given where we are, is a very common question is, will this program license you in Minnesota? Earl or Rachel, do you want to take that, or I can? Go ahead.
So as Pam said, the University of Wisconsin River Falls, the STEMteach program is in Wisconsin. And so you are licensed in Wisconsin, and we do everything to make it possible so that you will meet the requirements if you choose to go to Minnesota to teach. So because of the tiered system that the licensing is in Minnesota, other than some paperwork, it's usually a fairly seamless process. About half of our candidates from STEMteach that finish the program, they go on to teach in Minnesota, and there haven't been any issues. So as long as you've completed all the requirements for STEMteach here and what Wisconsin requires, you can move over to teach in Minnesota.
Yeah, and beyond, Minnesota is obviously our most common question, but there aren't a lot of reciprocal agreements between states. Some states you would be able to go to, get your license, a full license and be ready to go. I can tell you that if you were licensed outside of the state of Wisconsin and wanted to come to Wisconsin to teach, you would have to take some additional courses in Native Americans in Wisconsin if that wasn't covered under your initial program, which if you weren't in Wisconsin, it probably wasn't. So every state is a little bit different, but do know that Wisconsin has a pretty high standard for our teacher licensing requirements. So I think that we can say with relative confidence that if you do have to take additional courses outside of the STEMteach program in order to qualify for license in another state, that it should be minimal. So that's a great question.
And we also had one candidate who's currently teaching in Virginia. That was a pretty straightforward process. I know he didn't need any extra coursework. And then we had another candidate who's currently teaching in Florida. And he, other than paperwork, he didn't have to complete any extra coursework. And we also had a student who just got back from teaching for 3 years in England. And he also did not need any extra coursework. So people have found that if they get licensed here in Wisconsin, that there is some fluidity to be able to go to other places.
Great. Let's see, I don't see that we've had any other questions come in. So another one that comes up, we had Earl talk a bit about our NOIS opportunity. One of the questions that has happened is, do I have to be a NOIS scholar? Absolutely not. You're welcome to be in the program. The content is all the same. There's nothing necessarily that the NOIS scholars do in addition to what the rest of our students would in the classroom. It's just obviously, other than the large financial support that is available, after you have completed the program, you also have a lot of opportunity for professional networking beyond just the year that you're in the program. So there are definite benefits to being a NOIS scholar, but if for some reason that is not what you want to do, certainly not required. As far as timing, Earl, what we have at least this coming year and probably the year after where we would have funding?
Yes. And at that point, then you'd have to work on writing a new grant.
Yeah, it's not a forever thing, but for this coming year, so starting in June of 2021, we would definitely have funding for students. Oh, let's see. Another common question that comes up is about whether or not you can be a part-time student in the STEMteach program. I think you've probably heard that it is a full-time, considered a full-time rigorous graduate program. And really, although it seems scary to give up a full-time job to take these classes in the summer and the fall, I mean, you really have to think of it as that's all you're giving up. That in the spring you would be student teaching full-time anyway and wouldn't be able to have that full-time job. We have certainly had students who have tried to retain some level of part-time employment during the program. We cannot tell you not to do that, but it's definitely, this is going to be a lot of work and it's very rewarding, and you get the program in that condensed amount of time, but we don't want to make it sound like this is a program that you can keep your full-time job and be successful in your learning environment. So the answer to, can I be a part-time student? Can I take class here and there? Can I kind of piece things together? The answer is no. The only real flexibility that we may have is that if a student for some reason wants to delay their student teaching, their apprentice teaching, we can work with that, but again, it's probably not recommended. So it's another common question that we have.
Can I add something there, Pam? This program is only a year long. There are other graduate programs where that is probably possible, but it's going to take you 2 or 3 years to become licensed. So one of the things that drew me to this program was the condensed, deep nature, and it's like a full-time job.
Yep, thank you
to that too, Pam.
Yep.
So I'm excited to say that I am a NOIS scholar and did receive the stipend for NOIS, and that has helped me. The environmental education isn't the most lucrative field. I did have some money saved up, but the NOIS scholarship definitely is allowing me to participate in this program throughout the entire year, and I get to work in high need school districts afterwards, which was my plan anyway, so it works out.
Great, thank you. So we've got a few minutes left. Any other questions or anything that our attendees want to tell us about themselves. I mean, we can certainly follow up after. As you can see, we're passionate about this program. We think it's a great opportunity to really get teachers out in the field in areas where they're needed the most. So I don't have any other questions necessarily on my list. If there's any other closing remarks from anyone. All righty. Well, thank you to our attendees for joining us today. This is kind of a new format for us as well in the age of COVID-19. So we hope that you found it informational. If you have additional questions, please don't hesitate to either go back and comment on the Facebook post, and we will be sure to get you any questions answered that way. My direct contact information, may or may not be there, but it's pretty simple. If you can see my name, it's just pamela.bowen@uwrf.edu, and I will happily answer any questions that you have or forward them off to the rest of the team. So if there's nothing else, I think we can wrap up, and I hope that everybody has a great day.
Thank you for participating.
Yes.